Creatives, community, kind folks out there, welcome to RPG with DBJ. I'm your host, DBJ, and today we have a special episode basically brought about through a combination of very kind individuals out there and just ending a series of world building. The title might be a little bit strange to you guys, so I will explain. And matter of fact, I will explain it by holding this particular book underneath my chin. Okay, so yesterday I was thanked very deeply by a participant in the chat for giving me a super chat and said, you know what, I'm going to start a campaign in the world of riffs. So I thought, hey, why don't we riff a little bit on riffs, capital R, and then why don't we talk about riffs, lowercase r, with a bunch of us, a bunch of riffraff. So I thought, hey, why don't we talk about it? I pulled out a bunch of my books. I have a stack beside me. Not all of them, but they're from Palladium Games. We're going to go into a little, let's see if we can get this on camera here. Yeah, that's a ton of, I can't hold them all up. Ooh, there we go. That's a ton of books from Palladium Games and the Riffs game setting. So maybe go into a little bit of history of the game setting and then talk about riffs, the game, and then lowercase r riffs and how we can use them in our game and what the purpose could be both in a meta game setting, like why would you even bother using riffs, and then more holistically, like about the game riffs and why would you use that particular game, and then how we can use the riffs in a setting. Okay, so background, riffs, the Palladium game system. You can easily go to the Wikipedia, just look up riffs RPG, hit Wikipedia, and you'll find out a ton of information. But in short, it is a game system that started in 1990 and has over 80 supplements attached to it and various iterations. And essentially what it is why am I not seeing the chat? Essentially, it's basically a system of, oh, there we go. Now the chat. I'm sorry. I like to keep the chat open, and it just did not go in. All right. Yeah. So everyone's like, ooh, riffs. Yeah. Dead Man Storyteller says, real talk on a different day. Ja Rule thinks Fire Festival 2.0 would be lit. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be lit, all right. I posted a link in the webboard chat. Yeah, wow. Yeah, just sorry. Sorry. Yeah, Dead Man Storyteller says almost as many as D&D. Yeah, it's as far as Riffs books, 80 books or whatever. Okay. A little bit of history. So Palladium Games had existed as I hate to say this, as the unwanted stepchild to Dungeons and Dragons for quite a number of years. And yeah, everyone says, I love Riffs, but it has a lot of random tables. Are those random tables good? Actually, they're pretty good. And one of the impetuses of Kevin Siembiena and pronounce this word. One of the impetuses of creating the system was that there were a number of Riffs books. One of the beginning most popular ones in the mid 80s was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, based off of the original black and white comics, which was very bloody and very serious. And so they had a number of books, but they were all in different worlds. And so they said, well, what would be a cool idea would be to have a world-changing event. So a couple hundred years in the future, scientists are basically messing, like a Hadron Collider type of situation, creates this, studies extra-dimensional energies that exist in the world, basically taking a gaming, something called potential psychic energy, essentially creating it as a background for the game, that there's this energy that could be tapped into. The scientists tap into this energy at the same time there's like a nexus and an alignment of planets, et cetera, and it rips open something, and then hey Des, what's going on? Opens up a portals, and all of a sudden there's these ley lines, and eventually the ley lines open up and create rifts to other worlds. And roll some dice. Guess what? We have an excuse to have every book in the Palladium system that's ever been created for having a reason to be on Earth. And then they decided to have these rifts open up, small r, rifts open up around the world and essentially create a hey, you want to play in the fabled city of Atlantis? Good, because it's in the ocean. You play in ancient Aztec with giant intelligences controlling vampires and all that kind of stuff. Great, we have that in Central America or South America or something like that. You want to play in ancient Tolkien, which is so silly. Anyway, like J.R.R. Tolkien, who created the Lord of the Rings, they have a city called Tolkien, spelled differently, that's all about magic and dragons and sorcery and wizards and knights. And then you want to play military campaigns? Sure, we have the coalition, and so they just made these excuses. So now in game, essentially what it is, it's a hodgepodge of any and everything in role-playing games, all in one world. You could play anything, everything. A person can be a sniper next to a mutated dragon, next to a cyber soldier, next to a wizard, next to an ogre, and all next to a martial artist, and everything in between. You can all play in the same world. Yeah, as everyone says, I remember making a character for a Star Wars like campaign. I was a side slinger. I control guns with psionics and could shoot multiple times, multiple at a time, like multiple guns at a time. Yeah, there's some really bizarre things, and a lot of the gaming elements came about because they got the art first and then decided to write up the mechanics for it afterwards. So, I mean, and this is from the creators themselves. So a lot of it wasn't just, hey, we're going to think, intently about this. Like, for example, here is a picture that they used for the cover of Riffs. And later on, they were like, hey, why don't we just make up game stats for it? Like and just created it for the game, right? Like it wasn't like they pre-thought about it. They just were like, this is great artwork. I think we're going to use it. And so there are all kinds of things. You could be, doctors and soldiers. And it's like this post-apocalyptic world where all of these things came from other worlds through the Rifts into the Rifts setting. All right. So the major, while it sounds bizarre, they did, for the most part, do a good job explaining each region of the world and their relationship to each other region of the world, because the humans that made it in this post-apocalyptic world by being invaded from these other dimensions, having creatures from these other dimensions, formed themselves into the coalition. Do I have a coalition book here? Yeah, I have a coalition book. So there we go. So they formed themselves into the coalition, and the coalition can be seen as like the bad guys in some ways, because they're like anti-creature, magic and that kind of stuff, nearly enslaving people. They have this armor that's coalition. Let's see if I can open up a picture here. That uses like a lot of a skull motif for them. And so in some ways they could be seen as the bad guys, but then you can play the coalition and look at them as the good guys and such. Yeah, Zevran talks about the Splugorth. Zevran said pretty much every race or enemy can be played. Slinger was in Altara, I believe the name was, a blind warrior women that were created as a slave capture bodyguard force for the Splugorth, which was the picture I just showed. Splugorth are like ugly love child of beholders and Slod, and that's a Splugorth, and these are the blind women with like cybernetic, like eye implant things and stuff. Yeah, like enslaved by them. So yeah, you could play. The game was designed so you could play anything, right? So there really wasn't a bad guy. It was just it was more or less based on your point of view. Now, the thing that game-wise, what they came up with was, because they had so many powerful creatures and weapons, the original game has something called SDC, structural damage, something capacity or whatever. I know I'm probably got that wrong. And SDC was like hit points. You could have 30 SDC or 52 SDC or 107 SDC, and you would get shot by something and no big deal. But in this setting, they have mecha, missiles, laser weapons, armor. So they came up with something called MDC, which is mega damage potential, mega damage capacity or something like that. Anyway, the problem was anything that caused SDC could not harm MDC. And an MDC, as everyone says in the chat, you hit someone with an MDC weapon, is like being shot with a Star Destroyer. Okay, so the smallest MDC weapon, a small little tiny little laser pistol, does 1d4 MDC. And you go, that's not much. Except for the fact that it was a 100 multiplier difference. So an MDC laser weapon did 100 to 400 points of damage to every other SDC creation in the world, which meant every other book that came before Rifts was even created, a simple laser weapon was like being hit like a Star Destroyer, like Zevron said. The minimum damage was 100 points. Your average human being had maybe 8 to 10. Your average character hero might have between 20 to 50 at max. And the smallest weapon did 100 points of damage. So everything switched over to MDC. And so it was a huge power creep, and anything that did the SDC, the smaller damage, could never harm the higher damage. So if you wore MDC battle armor, it had maybe 50 MDC. That meant it could take 5,000 points of damage from the smaller weapons, right? 50 MDC times 100. You see where I'm going? So there's a huge discrepancy. Now, mind you, what you can do is everyone just plays MDC characters, and that's the thing. Now, the game system got a lot of flack for that, because there wasn't any effort to balance the system, although over the years they have created advancements and iterations and explanations to try to improve it. But this is weird to say, but it is a wow. I'm stumbling for it is loved for the fact that it is a game system that didn't embrace balance. So it was like trying to corral kittens. You know what I mean? Like it's just a very difficult thing to try to balance after so many years of existing, and I believe people loved it. And yeah, as everyone says, Rifts is definitely not balanced at all, at all. Just even if you take a glance through some of the possible player options from the first book all the way through all of the other books, whether it's like the main book of Rifts here. Bam. And then you go into, like, here I brought up the Coalition, one of many of the Coalition War. Sorry about the reflection there. We have Rifts Japan, which is sweet. Oh, there's a picture. Oh, sorry, got to show you this picture. If for no other reason than to play it, or actually multiple pictures, right? You want to play in Riffs Japan? You want to play a multi-armed cybernetic? Where's my face at? There we go. A multi-armed cybernetic ninja. Yeah, go for it. Oh, you want to play it like a mega damage armored cyber samurai? Yeah, go for it, right? You could play a vampire. Yeah, in the game, vampires literally had a stat that said they could not be harmed by anything unless it was like silvered, I believe, fire and holy water. I think that was basically it. Yeah, you could drop a nuke on vampires and you wouldn't harm them at all. I mean, that was just a rule in the game. Like you could, wild, absolutely wild. So, but in a certain, there we go. There's that full page picture. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Camera's not. Come on, camera. There we go. Yeah, half cyborg samurai with a blaster pistol with probably 150 MDC armor. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone said, literally, you pretty much have to dedicate yourself a whole day to kill one. And even then, it might not work. And even if you did, they regenerate almost 100 hit points. And let's not forget, there were cities of hundreds of thousands of them being controlled by an alien intelligence in Central America. So yeah. Yeah. And then so, but one of the things that kind of, I don't want to say impressed me, but I think it taught people who played the system that it truly was a sandbox. And yeah, everyone goes on to say Mexico got taken over. Most of the Texas setting surrounds vampire hunting. Yeah, and one of the things that for those who played this game really learned, and if you had to take any lesson out of this game at all, would be that it truly was a sandbox. And in sandbox play, one of the rules, this is a metagaming rule, is that if you're a player character, you can come across anything. Some things you just will not be able to kill. Sorry, won't be able to kill it. So does that mean you could be a first level character and run across a goblin that you could dispatch in one backhand, not even thinking about it? Sure. Could you then go over a mountain range and encounter 5,000 things that couldn't be killed by 20th level styled characters all at one time? Is that possible? Sure. And Riffs really embraced that. Yeah, Zala says it was one of the first games I ran horribly, but it was fun for 2 sessions. Yeah. I mean, it really, you never knew what you might encounter. You didn't know its power level. It didn't matter. Your character, on one hand, your character could confront something and just wipe the floor with them, and then the very next hour encounter something that just crushes you in one blow and not even think about it. Just wipe. You're just a stain on the bottom of its boot. And so, so in a weird way, a lot of players loved it just for that fact, which is, some players would find it horrible. It would be like playing a video game, and a video game goes, because many video games, just follow me on this. They go, okay, you're a beginning character. You get to click the I'm a beginning character function. So everything you encounter is of a level that you are supposed to be able to overcome at some point, right? So you start out at level 1, you only fight level 1 things. You've gotten to level 3, you only fight level 3 things, and so on. Rift threw that out the window. Rift says, you're level 1, go for it. good luck. Pat you on the little bum bum and says, go ahead, little baby, go out into the world, watch your ass, and that's it, right? So everyone says, sorry for spamming chat so much. I love Riffs a lot. It was the first game I learned to play, and it means a lot to me. Yeah, I enjoy talking about it, not since everyone knows it. Riffs is basically Dark Souls, and very much so. So while it was very, and I'm going to use the word gonzo a lot, while it did incorporate like magic and psionics and power armor and dragons and oozes and demons and angels and all, I mean, everything, a giant kitchen sink, literally, it also allowed you to have a lot of fun with things like cyborg dragons and, angels possessed by demons with, I don't know, psionics and a cybernetic arm, and just like, wait, what the hell is going on? I'm going to play a glitter boy, which was like a chrome plated, reflective, power armored mecha pilot that had like one of the largest rail guns in the world, and literally the feet had these railgun jacks that would dig into the ground because the cannon on the back of the thing was so big it would knock the mecha over. Whatever, like you could play all these things, and so you had a lot of fun with it. So here's another one, Rifts Underseas, and just a ton of artwork and everything in it. So Mythos yesterday, thanks for the super chat there, Mithos. Mithos says, hey, I'm going to start running a Riffs. It's my first time GMing. I'm going to run Riffs. Any advice, all that kind of stuff. So my advice is to absolutely positively run a session 0. You got to find out what everybody wants to play, what style of game they want to play, and then get on the same page, and then talk about the fact that Riffs doesn't care about you. Okay, Riffs is not balanced for your player character, no matter what type of player character you create. So Riffs accommodates power fantasies. You got to talk about that with your players. Is there somebody in the group that really wants to play the biggest and baddest, most powerful thing they can play? And are they going to have fun? And more importantly, are they going to allow everyone else that's with them to have as much fun? And then as a game master, are you going to have fun running a game with power hungry individuals in it? Is that going to be a thing? So you got to talk about it. Is everyone going to play human beings that are game you want to play? Are you going to play where everyone is from a particular region of Rifts? Are you going to play like a hodgepodge where everyone is like outsiders from their own regions of Rifts? And how do they get along? As a game master, Mythos, you could just ask like, hey, you tell me why you're together. Could it be that you were all enslaved or captured? I've played in games where that was the case, right? Hey, everybody make up a character, and you're going to start out, you're all imprisoned, you're all jailed, and why? And come up with reasons for that. And sure, you could say, well, one player is evil, of course he's got arrested. Maybe another person's good. And I played one time, someone had a paladin, and the reason for being enslaved or being jailed was they were accused of a crime they didn't commit, and the real person who committed the crime did it for self-defense. But they said, well, I'll take the blame for it. Okay, great reason. So get together, do that. Absolutely. Zevron's geeking out over here. Says, we were revolutionaries similar to Firefly. Our mounts were dragoned with laser-mounted turrets on their backs. Yes, there are dragons with laser-mounted turrets on their backs. If you can think of it, it exists. Period. Zevron goes on to say, the Cyber Knight is a class dedicated to you being in power armor, something that is endgame in strength, and basically is a humanoid shaped tank plus really powerful magic. Yeah, Yeah, can't. I cannot agree with you more. Zala says, like I said yesterday, everyone plays hobos. Done. Let's see how they rise to the top. Exactly, right? Everyone's like, I have no family. It's I have no ties to the community. I'm just going to wander around and look for fame and fortune. I think it would be better to have ties to some kind of community, whether you're coalition soldiers or give them. Personally, I like the idea of having responsibility as a player character and as a GM because you can pull on those strings. But whatever, it's the game. The game isn't really designed for introspection and social interactions. It's pretty much blast down the doors and steal stuff and collect more equipment and fight other things to steal stuff and run for your life when you try to blast the doors down and realize that they've all got like 5,000 mega damage potential and you've got to run like hell. So yeah, that's basically it. And basically having the players get on the same page. Are they just trying to survive? Are they hunted? Are they out for fame and fortune? Are they trying to protect a isolated community? Are they trying to shut down a rift and whatnot? That kind of things. Yeah, Azal says, just because you're a hobo doesn't mean you don't have a history. Like for this example, quotes, I'm really good in power armor and driving spaceships, but all I have is a broken bottle to stab people with. Right. I get it. I'm making fun, right? You can start out with hey, I've got skills and nothing, and then I'm going to go out in the world and try to find my way, right? It's the recent movie Solo, right? Hey, I'm the best pilot in the world without a starship. Exactly. So my suggestion is session 0, talk about the kind of power level you want, go over the character types, possibly make up some backup characters. I'm going to highly suggest you make up some backup characters. They don't have death saves in this game. Despite how powerful the player characters are, there's no death saves. I mean, you're dead, you're dead. Okay, you're going to get if your normal human somehow has to leave their power armor and gets blasted by a holdout pistol that does MDC damage, there's a stain on a carpet, and you just better use your backup character. So I would suggest doing that. So everyone says a video that was placed in a Discord by Infernal Canuck has a setting where he DM'd riffs for his friends. Okay. He gave them a giant tank by episode 20. Wow. I'm going to watch that. I have it on. I actually got in the Discord and started watching it, but I had to go to work. And so then I linked into his YouTube page, but he does a lot of like video gaming videos. So I'm gonna have to go back and kind of dig back into it. I don't know what he was doing to mention my channel, but gonna have to find that out and figure out what the reference was. Not certain. Zala says a PC died within 5 minutes of starting my game because of a landmine. Yeah, it is a brutal game on both ends, right? PCs will wipe out your bad guys in a matter of moments. A couple of die rolls and they're just stains. And the same thing for your PC. So make up some backup characters. Now, some people aren't really interested in playing riffs, right? It's like, why would I want to play this game that is lamb blasted in so many things with 80 books that came from the 90s, and there's so much history and I can't keep up and I'm not playing that. Well, Zebron says he explained. I'm sorry, Dragon Pilot. Okay, the Dead Man Storyteller says the Netflix series Dragon Pilot. I've never heard of that one. I have to check that out. Dragon Pilot. Zevron says he explained that why you may think that it was too much for his players. He says this is Rifts. They can lose it by spending or dying in 5 minutes. Yeah, very easily. I mean, very, very easily. So the question comes into like, why would you bother playing the game in the first place? Like if you're a person that wants to invest in your player character, why would you want to play a game where they can die in 5 minutes? And if you're a game master, you're like, listen, I want to make a setting. I spent 3 hours prepping. Why would I want my players to blast everything away in 5 minutes of the game after I spent 3 hours doing it? And the reasoning is because it is very, just like rolling a D20, you have an equal chance of rolling a 1 and a 20 on any die roll ever. The game is always surprising. You never know what's going to happen. It is always a roll of the die. You don't know what you're going to encounter, and you've got to be smart. It's like prep for the worst, play for what is it? Prepare as if you'll live forever, but live as if you'll die tomorrow. And it embraces both of those together, right? So everyone says the sandbox is very freeing. It is the ultimate sandbox in its truest sense of the word. It is you being picked up today, dropping you in a city you've never been to with language you can't speak and telling you go for it. And you don't know what you'll encounter. Maybe you'll encounter someone who's very friendly and will lead you to the right place. I'll get you to your hotel room. I will take you to the authorities. You seem to be lost. Or you might encounter somebody that's like, hey, I'm going to rob you. You outsider who can't speak our language, stuck here with no money and wandering around our streets. I'm going to pop you in the jaw or stick up a knife to, you know what I mean? You don't know. You might get hit by a car. You might catch an infectious disease and you still can't speak the language and all the, it's like, what it's the same thing in this game as well. Deadman explains Dragon Pilot, a cartoon with dragons that have lasers attached to them. Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's very much like this in this setting. Like there are literal AI piloted dragons, or you could play a character that's piloting a mecha dragon with lasers attached to the side, or there are actual real dragons that have implanted cybernetics on themselves. It's really crazy. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about, sorry, Zevron. Let's talk a little bit about riffs with the lowercase r. If you want to make a hodgepodge setting, like, hey, I have my Dungeons and Dragons books, but I also want to, I picked up this third-party setting, or I even have like my Dungeon Master's Guide that allows me to add in high-tech weapons. Like, I really want to do something different for my players. Can I do that? And the easiest way to do that is to use riffs, lowercase r, a rift in time and or space that opens up a way for you to come to another world. There's another game that operates on using riffs, and it's called Torg, where an opening to other worlds comes on Earth, and not only is there like a prehistoric version, a high-tech version, a cyberpunk version, a magic version, a psionic version comes to Earth and all mingles together, but the rules of that world also come here as well. So you could incorporate that in your own game setting, right? Let's say you want to use classic Dungeons and Dragons, but you want to incorporate some high-tech elements into it. You could say, well, there's a rift, and some of that those high-tech invaders have come to this world and they're running around. But you have to be careful with game balance on two levels. One, game balance is the numeric values, right? If you want to incorporate like laser pistols or Glock 19s, do they do the same damage as crossbows? That's up to you. Do they do more damage? Are you going to incorporate more rules for, say, firearms or mechanized armor? I would beware of doing that for, say, like 5th edition, because they don't have those rules for the regular weapons. Like a sword doesn't do bleeding damage. It doesn't sever limbs. It doesn't do impaling damage. I wouldn't bother with new rules for firearms or something. So you have to know you have to balance the numeric values. Like, does an armored spacesuit equal plate mail? You could easily do that. Just reskin it. or is it more powerful? And so then, therefore, you have to come up with your own reasonings for that, as well as the setting balance, right? Is technology going to spread in your medieval world, or is it just held in one little small area? Is it easy access? Is it very ubiquitous? Is it common, or is it rare? And so you have to balance those two things. Zevron says, hell, the Three Galaxies book gives DMs the ability to make infinite worlds to pilot a ship towards multiple galaxies, strange rules for psychic, for physics, for each, and creating aliens. Yeah, do I have one of those books? Yes, I do. Phase World, I believe. Oh, my camera's messed up. Okay, Phase World was basically is basically an entire book based on like an alien galaxy of empire connected into this world with aliens and the armor and all that kind of stuff. and Zevron says it allows you to buy slaves. I believe so. Like, aliens, a ton of armor and robots. You could play like a full-bodied cyborg. There's the camera. There we go. Full-bodied cyborgs, psychics. I mean, all kinds of crazy things. It's crazy what you could play and become, and then you could play. Hey, I'm just going to play a normal human being. Yeah, that's all I'm going to do. Play normal human being. Get wiped on the floor. But anyway, in this game setting, there's I got to show you guys this thing if it's in here. Warlocks. I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Zevron mentioned this. There's a player character thing called a cosmonaut. There it is, cosmonaut. And there's a little picture of it. A cosmonaut is basically a player character that can fly naked through space. It has galactic awareness, cosmic armor, and a weapon. It's crazy. I mean, basically, you're like a knighted version of like Green Lantern or Silver Surfer or something. It's crazy. Zevron goes on to say, trying to incorporate from a glance in riffs is like trying to make competitions honest. Yeah. So if you want to incorporate riffs, the small lowercase r into a world, it's a good example of how to blend different time periods, different worlds. Someone says, hey, I picked up a book on ancient Japan. Can I bring this into your game world? With the, as long as it has the same rules, you go, yeah, sure, okay, let's do that. And let's say that there's a rift to this other world, and someone else says, oh, I picked up a third-party book. Like, for example, in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, we have Legend of the Five Rings. We have L5R version. We have Esper Genesis. There's Ravaged Lands of Cryfoth. We have Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin coming out. There is, there's the Dungeon Master's Guide that even has high-tech weapons in it. There's the Unearthed Arcana on their website that brings up techno magic. And so if you really wanted to bring all those into one world, you could, but I would try to balance it both narratively and then game mechanically, and then just go for it and just let it go. The other thing about having the lowercase r and having riffs in your game world is it allows you to, it's the stranger in a strange land concept. So instead of having a race of minotaurs or a race of Medusa that are common in your world, you can have the alien species or race or people that come to this new world, and the conflicts that happen of them trying to adapt themselves to a new world. So, for example, the players could be going along, and then all of a sudden, maybe there's like alien pods, and the bestial creatures are like, eating things in the world, people, livestock or something. because they're trying to survive, not knowing what to eat or live off of. And then eventually maybe the PCs, if they're smart enough, maybe they're able to talk to them or incorporate them into this new society, or maybe they just have to eliminate them and, before they commit complete genocide on humanity. So it is like a stranger in a strange land kind of idea where you could always bring something new through a rift to just surprise the player characters. And a great way of saying, hey, all of this is normal, and then whoa, they turn the corner and they find something where gravity is different or energy is different, or some alien species uses magic, but they've used it through technology, right? Or you find out maybe the players, this is the first time they come across a psionically trained alien species, and one of the player characters is now able to learn some kind of psychic potential or what have you. Maybe this might be the first time they run across technology, and the barbarian finally gets his arm blown off and now has a cyber arm, and that becomes a new part of the game. So it's a great way to say, hey, I'm going to not only just reward you player characters, but also give you something to literally explore and discover. Azali, you're so silly. Says any class that works completely naked is a class that I approve of. Yeah. I've got 3 weapons, both in my hands. Zevron 8 says in base rifts, it takes place after an apocalypse. So players could ask things like, what's a Chicago? Exactly. Or it could have things like samurai as they try to mimic the past with future tech and aliens. And that was the reason for the contrived, let's be honest, it was a contrived reasons for the Rifts Japan book, right? It was, hey, let's have cyber ninjas. How are we going to make cyber ninjas in post-apocalypse? I know, the real Japan was shunted to another dimension, and their technology kept increasing that was not affected by this post-apocalyptic world. And then somehow a rift opened up and they came back. Voila, right? And at the same time, they also were like, yeah, and then the other part of Japan stayed and they became like ancient Japan. Yeah. Whatever, right? I mean, some of it is very convenient in terms of the capital R riffs, but let's be honest, it was a way to incorporate all those things because players want to do those things, and as a GM, you're like, great. One of you wants to play an ancient samurai, and then another one of you wants to play a cyber samurai in the same world. Yeah, let's go for it. Your pocket GM says everything is more exciting with cyber ninjas. Yeah. And as everyone says, rule of cool trumps all. Well, shit, the entire setting is rule of cool to the extreme. I mean, absolutely to the extreme. I don't have the book, but there's a psychic warrior, like a psionics book, basically with like psionic knights and like psionic ninjas and shape changers and people that could possess other people's minds and people that could teleport and phase through walls, and it's all kinds of stuff. Of course, you have to have the psychic knife or psychic sword and ton of crap. So that being said, if you really want to do a kitchen sink setting, and mind you, you don't have to use the Rift's rules to do that. You can make up your own rules as far as like when has this event happened? How prolific is it? Why has it happened? For example, you could have different time periods come into your world. So you could have like ancient Rome, and then maybe World War I, and then the prehistoric world come into your world. And then layer on top of that, how are people reacting to it? Like, for example, Zevron brings up in the chat, juicers, people who load up on psionic drugs and cause explosions with their eyes. Yeah. There's two character types that are so endemic to and to the Rifts world, capital R Rifts. There's the juicers and the moms. The juicers are people who only have a lifespan of like no more than 5 years, I believe, 3 to 5 years. And they basically wear a harness that juices their bodies with endorphins, nanotech, drugs, painkillers, and all kinds of things that makes them into like this physical superhuman, like a super soldier, but it shortens their lifespan and it affects their minds, turns them a little bit crazy. They become they can't settle down. Their adrenal system is ramped up. They're like Jason Statham from the Crank movies, right? Always. And yeah, they overload. There's one that is the juicer. Oh, it's a juicer. It's a juicer that's so juiced up that they end up that it juices up their brains, so they become like psychic warriors, and their brains begin to burn up in their bodies, and they can go supernova. It's so bizarre, and I believe I have it in the book right now. Okay, so while I'm talking to you guys, I'm trying to flip through to go ahead and find it. But juicers are also also there's moms, mind over matter. These are plug heads. They are individuals that have these shunts in their brains that give them like psychic abilities and ability to like to turn off their pain receptors and such. And it allows many of them. Well, first of all the MOMs are completely insane, right? That's just a thing. They're completely insane. As well as being completely insane, they are physical titans of the world, right? I mean, it's just really crazy how powerful they are. And Peacekeeper, I know there's one in one of these books. Named by the Namer says, I'm running a goblin campaign, and soon they will travel through a rift to the 1980s to get an item for their forgotten god. I don't know what it might be. Maybe a VHS. Oh, 1980s VHS. Maybe an Atari game system with one of the cartridges that you always had, the little small cartridges you had to blow on to get the dust off of and then plug it in like Pong or whatever. Oh man, 1980s. I can't find it. Sorry, guys. I can't find it. Yeah, there's a juicer that's just like that just goes nova. It's so crazy. But anyway, juicers are basically humans that are trying to keep up with the power curve. The mind over matter people are the ones trying to keep up with the power curve. It's just a crazy, insane setting, and you could create in your own world like human beings maybe like grafting, I don't know, body parts from fiends onto their bodies and stuff. Like you could really go crazy with that. Named by the Namer says, love the riff setting. How does Savage Riffs hold up to the classic riffs? You know what? I have not played or seen the Savage Worlds version of that. And for those who don't know, Savage Worlds purchased the rights to using the Palladium system and created their own retelling of the world riffs. And Mega Juicers. Yeah. I can't remember what they're. So if anybody out there knows about the Savage Worlds riffs version, I know there was a Kickstarter for it, if I'm not mistaken, and that was easily funded. I don't know anyone that's playing it now, and from what I understand, it's just as wild and gonzo and unbalanced from what I understand. But Savage Worlds has an easier time balancing it, and it's very cinematic the way the style is. So I can't imagine it's any worse than the original Palladium. Palladium's not really rules heavy, but Savage Worlds is far more rules light than it. So yeah, I could see that. VHS of the original Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, right. Named by the Namer says, I thought the same thing. I think Savage Worlds probably is a better balanced version of everything Riffs is about. And especially if you love a kitchen sink setting, Riffs is your thing. The only problem with creating your own kitchen sink is the same problem Riffs has, which is the minute you insert something, you're always going to have a very smart and intelligent player start asking questions about it. There's always going to be the why. Well, why don't the dragons have computers? Why what happens when a Medusa looks a cyborg in the eye? Do their cybernetic parts turn to stone? Does poison affect these 3 other alien species the same way it affects humans? Like, you're going to have questions, and you're going to have to solve for X every time someone asks a question, right? And then the minute you answer the question, that becomes canon, and then you're going to have to keep track of the canon, and so it can become a little daunting. So little sprinkles of flavor, right? Too much salt. A pound of salt on your food is worthless, but a little sprinkle adds flavor. So it's just, you just got to flavor it just a little bit. Dead Man Storyteller says there was a series on Sci-Fi called Metal Hurlant Chronicles that had an episode where there was a medieval society that needed something from the other side of a rift that opened into modern USA. And that's a common trope, right? The human being pulled through a rift to another world, and their modern technology helps save this ancient world, whether it's like a magnifying glass or a watch or a modern day gun, those kind of things. Hey, Prue says, I've never gotten around actually playing Riffs. Always thought it sounded like a cool concept, but I'm notoriously tight-fisted with my money when it comes to buying new RPGs. I was close to buying Savage Worlds, though. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to invest in up to 80 Riffs books. Now, mind you, you don't need 80 Riffs books. Like, there is a main Riffs book. This is it, right? There is a main Riffs books. It's got some character classes. It talks about some of the world. It gives you some pointers as to what exists in the world. It gives you some full color images in the book. Like, for example, they inserted a full color image of what the Earth looks like. These are ley lines. So from Earth's orbit, you can see the ley lines, and then these are where the rifts, where the ley lines converge. Those are the rifts. There are, let's see if we can show this image. This is an adventuring party in the world, and this is a rift as it goes across the landscape, that blue energy and whatnot, as it snakes across the landscape. So yeah, it gives you some ideas of what the world is like, and you can just buy the one book and just leave it at that. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, okay, I have a cyborg that's running around, and oh, by the way, I have to mix this in with something straight out of like Conan, and mix this in with something straight out of like I don't know, Red Sonja or something. Like, how do you how do you reconcile the two, right? I mean, it even gives you it gives you maps of the world and the different regions and what's going on there, but it doesn't give you a lot of information as to like details on what's around. And then it gives you some examples of like, player character concepts. What do they look like? How are they dressed? Basically post-apocalypse. Post-apocalypse plus, I guess, would be the thing. So yeah, it's 90% of it is mindset, right? If you are a person who absolutely positively has to explain everything and rationalize things, and if you're a cup half empty kind of individual, for example, if you're the kind of person that's like, I don't see how this fits, or I don't see this working. Riffs is not your game, uh, basically. Uh, Prue says, I like the thought of buying that main book and then buying one or more small supplements for your specific needs, which is exactly what they did, right? So, for example, if you buy the main Riffs book, you then could buy, for example, maybe your players really wanted to do an undersea book, so you could just buy these two and do, you know, the undersea world, and then you're done. Or you could buy riffs and, you know, riffs and Japan, right? Riffs Japan, and just stick with that. Or you could buy riffs and, let's see, yep, I'm dropping crap. You could buy riffs, and look, there's these some other Palladium books like Mystic China, right? You could just add riffs, and then this is Mystic China, which existed before riffs was created, and just add the two and just go, this is ancient China, and I'm just going to add it in there. Or here's an old one, Ninjas and Super Spies. You can see how old it is. We're just going to add the two together. Mind you, there's no mega damage. This was an old book, Villains Unlimited, which was for Heroes Unlimited, had this for Palladium games. You could add in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So you could do all those things. Just buy those books. Azala says, I found a bunch of Riffs books for sale in a bargain bin. Got 4 of them for $1 each. That's so sweet. I don't know if you paid too much. No, I'm making fun, because they're very fun, but you have to absolutely embrace it. You don't want, if you are the type of person that wants to look too deep, you're going to be dissatisfied. You just are. Sorry. I know you're going to want explanations. You're going to know how these things work. You're going to want to know, why does a holdout pistol do 1d4 mega damage, which is nothing to these mega damage creatures, but does 100 to 400 points of damage to base level human beings? Don't do that to yourself. You're going to hurt your own feelings. My suggestion is to just embrace the world for what it is. Run it the way it's supposed to be run, which is a kitchen sink. Let one player be a mecha pilot next to a psychic warrior, next to a cyber soldier, you know, next to an alien amoeba, next to an alien shape changer, next to a human juicer that's amped up on steroids, and just go for it and just play it out. Just go for it. Prue says, I don't think I could run a Rifts game, but I'd totally be up for playing one-shots or mini campaigns in it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is very much a world where you become liberated both as a game master and a player. And in today's gaming community, that kind of gaming liberation is more of a niche than it is a full gaming mentality, I find. Prue says, don't do that to yourself. You're going to hurt your own feelings. Yeah, you will. You will. It is a game system that embraces the rule of cool first. Not mechanically, but I'm saying the idea that there is a whole nation full of vampires that cannot be killed, and go for it. Try to kill them. Go ahead. Just go for it. It is a world where you know, Splooglorth and enslaved women float around in an Atlantean black market, and they sell people's memories and dreams and hopes and stuff, and trade them. It's bizarre. You know, there are major corporations in this world that build battle armor and mechas, and you're like, corporations are building mechanized armor? How could you have a corporation and then also be post-apocalyptic, and then also have ancient Aztecs and ancient India combined with medieval Tolkien? You know, don't think too hard about it. Just accept it for what it is and play the game and be done with it. Yeah, Nephrite says it's big splash comic book stuff. It absolutely is. And back in the, if I don't know if you guys remember, because I'm old enough to remember this, back in the mid 80s, early to mid 80s, there was a period of time where they had these, I don't want to call them, I'll call them graphic novels for lack of a better term. There were graphic novels, and there were also these graphically designed picture books that were novelized, and they were full color books, and inside of them they had artwork, and they were these really bizarre, like samurai cat, alien spaceship, other dimension demon fighting, similar to Samurai Jack the cartoon. Don't think about it too hard. Just understand that Samurai Jack is fighting Aku and also fighting cyborgs, right? That's basically it. Yeah. Your Pocket GM says, yeah, when I hear Palladium, I hear American Comic Books RPG. It very much is, right? I mean, American comic books are just like, oh, and in this episode, they go to another dimension, and it's dinosaurs and cyborgs, and you're just like, okay, I guess it is. I mean, hell, the beginnings of the X-Men were very much like that. Hey, we're the X-Men, and we're mutants, and people hate us. And next episode, we're going to the Savage Land, which is a jungle in the middle of the Antarctic. Okay, and then this next thing, we're going to fight the Brood, which are like aliens that implanted eggs inside of us, and the intergalactic empire known as the Shi'ar. Okay, yeah, your Pocket GM says it's great if you want that camp punk serial sort of style. Very much so. Very, very much so. It is extremely. Oh, I wonder if you could combine riffs with teenagers from outer space. I wouldn't doubt it. Bizarre, but I wouldn't doubt it at all. So, yeah. So come on over. I got you. So, guys, thank you very much for joining me. We've hit the hour mark. I will say goodbye to you guys. Thank you very much to Mithos, who was able to thank me in a financial manner, which I really appreciate. My very first super chat was really, really bizarre. But guys, thank you very much. You guys have a great one. I will see you Monday morning. Have a great one.